Hello everyone, welcome back to our React tutorial series. I'm glad to have you here today. If you are new to the series, make sure to check out our previous videos to catch up on the concepts we've covered so far. In today's tutorial, we are going to dive into the topic of React props. Props allows us to pass data from one component to another. They make our components more dynamic and reusable. To demonstrate how props work in React components, let's create a functional component called userData. This component will display the name, age, and email of a person, and we will use props to pass these attributes. To create our userData component, we use the RFCE shortcut. Within this component, we employ a div element to serve as a container for the user data. By accessing the attributes of the props object using dot notation, we can dynamically display the user's name, age, and email. The name is displayed using a p tag with props.name as its value. The age is displayed using a p tag with props.age as value. And the email is displayed using a p tag with props.email as its value. To incorporate this component into our main app component and provide the necessary attributes as props, first, we import it using the import statement import userData from /components/userData. Next, within the return statement of the main app component, we include instances of the userData component passing in the required attributes. For example, we can set the name attribute to John Doe, the age attribute to 23, and the email attribute to john@angertrends.com for one instance. Similarly, for another instance, we can set the name attribute to Jane Doe, the age attribute to 25, and the email attribute to jane@angertrends.com. We then save the file and ensure the development server is running. We can observe the changes by checking the browser, where the updated userData components will be rendered with the provided attributes. Props can also be used to pass children to a component. These children are nested elements or content that we include between the opening and closing tags of a component. Let me show you an example. If you want to pass additional data to any of these instances, you can just do it simply between its opening tag and closing tag. For instance, let us add gender of Jane Doe. We first change this self-closing tag to an opening and closing tag. Then, between this tag, let's add a p tag with a text of female. Then, save the file. Now, inside the userData component, let's add a div tag with props.children as its value. This allows us to pass additional content or components as children. Save this file and check for the updates on your browser. As seen, Jane now has a gender under her name. To continue, props can also be used to dynamically pass styling to a component. For example, let's define a style constant that changes the component's background color to light blue. Additionally, let's give it a border radius, padding, and a margin of 10 pixels. Now, to utilize these styles, we'll define another constant called currentStyle. This constant checks if props.elementStyle is set to true. If true, it will hold the value of the style object. Otherwise, it will hold an empty string. Next, we will use the style attribute to assign the style. Save this file. Then, inside the app component, for the first instance, set element style attribute to true. For the second instance, set element style to false. Save the changes and check the browser for updates. As noticed, the style has been applied to the first instance, contrary to the second instance. Props are not limited to functional components. They can as well be used in class components. Although the syntax differs slightly, the concept remains the same. To pass props to a class component, you can use the this.props keyword. Let us create a class component called cars inside the components folder as an example. This component will display the name, price, and color of a car. You can use the RCC shortcut to create this class component. Inside the render method, let's copy code used in our functional component and paste it here. Then replace all occurrences of props with the this.props keyword. To do this efficiently, highlight the first props and use Ctrl+D to select all subsequent occurrences and then type this.props. Since we are displaying the name, price, and color of a car, let's define props for name, price, and color respectively. Save this file. Next, we import the cars component in the app component. For the first instance of the component, set the name to Nissan, price to $10,000, color to black, and element style to false. For the second instance, set the name to Toyota, price to $15,000, color to white, and element style to true. Save the file and observe the browser for any changes. Congratulations! You are now an expert in using React props. In our next tutorial, we will explore another important concept in React, React states. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so as to stay updated with the latest tutorials as well as helping this channel grow. That's all for today's tutorial on React props. I hope you found it helpful and gained a better understanding of how props work in React components. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.